All right, let's get into the next discussion now. It appears that ASUU has a grouse about the federal government's handling of its affairs.
If the strike threat issued by the association is anything to go by, students may once again be forced to stay home for an undetermined period. What exactly is at the root of this yearly face-off between ASUU and the Nigerian government? Find out when we speak to the national president of the association, Professor Ogunyemi. Right, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, says it can no longer guarantee that its members would continue to work if Wale Babalakin negotiating on the part of the federal government was not sacked. Yeah, ASUU President Ogunyemi said that Babalakin had become a stumbling block to peaceful negotiations and implementation of the union's demands. Meanwhile, members of ASUU in Ladoke Akintola University of Technology have already embarked on a 2-week warning strike, disrupting ongoing second semester examinations. And academic and non-academic staff of the institution say the strike is to express their displeasure with the non-payment of their salaries and poor facilities. Ladoke Akintola University of Technology was shut in June 2017, and academic activities only resumed there in February of this year after ASUU signed a memorandum of action with the governing council of the university. The students of Lautech are appealing to the Oyo and Osun state governments to find a lasting solution to the lingering crisis rocking the jointly owned institution. Now, joining us from our Abuja studio is the President, Academic Staff Union of Universities, Professor Ogunyemi. Professor, it's good to have you join us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here.
All right. Now, when it comes to strikes, ASUU strikes, Nigerians are not new to this. We've heard it so many times. We've had it so many times. As it is right now, the last strike you had, in fact, I remember we had you on the program, and we were hoping that with the understanding reached between the union and the government, that would have been the last time, at least in the nearest future. But here we are again. What are the issues this time around?
Thank you very much. There are basically two issues. The first one is about the negotiation, which has broken down. The second issue is the breach of the memorandum of action reached with ASUU in September last year. As for the negotiation, we started the negotiation March 2017, but for a whole of 14 months, the Babalakin-led committee was just dancing around the issues. And our members felt that it was like a journey to nowhere. And we sat back to review the situation, and we came to the conclusion that some fundamental issues will have to be addressed in order for us to continue with that negotiation. For the memorandum of action we signed September last year, government made a lot of promises. The case of revitalization fund, which was meant to be reactivated with the injection of 10 billion in September and another 10 billion in October 2017. Government did not do anything almost a year after that. Our members are owed areas of academic allowances. Government signed that after the completion of the ongoing forensic audit, the report will be released and the balance will be paid. Our members were paid shortfall in salaries for upward of 15 months. We calculated all of these, and government said, well, there is a presidential continuous auditing process that was going on. They call it PICA, that any university that was visited and was cleared, the areas of shortfall in their salaries will be paid. We believe that they have completed that. They have moved around universities our members are still being owed arrears of shortfall. And we have a number of other issues that are partially implemented. So we think that government must refocus the memorandum of action, and the negotiation must be brought back to process, because what we had for 15 months was nothing like negotiation. It was like the leader of the government team was just there to impose his own position. And that is not acceptable to ASUU.
We seem to be having a small issue there. We'll take a quick breather. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion with the Professor Biodun Ogunyemi.
Professor Biodun Ogunyemi.
Okay, now back to the question that I asked you. I'll make it as brief as possible. The issue of Wale Babalakin, who is heading the government's negotiating team, you're insisting that he should be sacked, otherwise you will not go ahead with the negotiations on the table. Why are you insisting that because of him, the university system has to suffer?
Well, it is because of our experience at the negotiating table. What we had so far was not negotiation. It was a one-sided discussion. Any position that was contrary to the position of the chairman of government team, it will bluntly refuse to accommodate. The way we understand negotiation is that it is a two-side affair. One side will bring its position, the other side will bring its own position. On some occasions that we had to insist, we set up a joint committee, 3 people from government side, 3 people from ASUU side. They went to work on our documents, and they came back with cogent proposals that should be considered and adopted. But the chairman of government team, even before discussions were held on the proposals, he came out bluntly to say, well, these positions are unrealistic and they are unworkable. And everybody was surprised. If we had a two-sided discussion that lasted for weeks, how can you just dismiss with a wave of the hand? And he insisted that he would present his own position. And that took us another weeks, another like 6-7 weeks for us to get there. And when he came back, what was his own position? He was saying that we must introduce fees, and that in introducing fees, we will set up an education bank. That education bank will give loans to students. 70% of the loans will be paid to universities, and 30% will be paid to the students. We saw through that it was an additional incentive for the privatization of public universities. They have been trying to do this all along, and we didn't see anything innovative about even the idea of a national education bank. I think Nigerians should recall that way back in 1993, a national education bank was introduced in this country. It operated for 7 years. At the end of the 7th year, in 2000, government had to set up a ministerial team to wind up the bank. And why did they do that? It was not feasible in Nigeria. One, the students that were to be given the loans, they do not have a guarantee market for employment. 2, government was not playing its own role because government did not release the capitalization fund that the bank needed to take off. 3, there were gales of corruption, which were documented. We looked at all of these and other reasons advanced in government's own white paper, which was adopted at the Federal Executive Council when they decided to fold up the education bank. And we told government team, we have traveled this path before. It did not work. What are we going to do differently to assure Nigerians that, one, we have assured our children that they will get automatic employment in order to pay back the loan? 2, that the issue of corruption raised about the bank we now have a way of insulating the bank against corruption. And 3, what is the level of commitment that government has shown on the ground? We referred the government team to even a memorandum of understanding ASUU signed way back in 2013 with the Nigerian government, where we agreed that government needed to inject 1.6 trillion naira into the university system in order to reinvigorate the system. So we called it revitalization fund. And that is what we have been struggling for government to implement. We will need much more than that to start an education bank. If government is committed to revitalizing our university system, government should start with that. Let government inject the fund. We have agreed that they will inject into the system, and let us see the impact and then assess whether we need another innovation.
Professor Ogunyemi,
But because
Professor, because of time, let's
Yes,
see how we can touch some of these issues before we leave. Now, some of the demands that you have in your union from the government, many of them are not new. Some of them are as old as 10 years and even more than that. It's not like you're negotiating something new. At the last time your association went on strike and then met with government and signed the memorandum of understanding and memorandum of action, what was agreed upon that made all of you suspend your strike or threat of strike in the first place? And now we're going back to the same thing again.
Well, I think Nigerians should appreciate the fact that ASUU does not like strike. And we opt for it as the option of the last resort. By next month, it will be 1 year that we suspended that action. Every item that was agreed upon in that memorandum of action has a timeline. Government, for instance, agreed to release revitalization fund of 20 billion in 2 tranches, September 10 billion, October 10 billion, 2017. Government has not done any of this. Government agreed that they had an ongoing forensic audit about the needs about our members and academic allowances, which were calculated and we agreed. Government promised to release the report of that forensic audit, but government did not do that. So when you look at all the issues, you find that there is none that we did not have some time attached to. So when you now put them side by side, what we are doing now is that government has a window. Come back to what you agreed to do. Do what you say you will do. And we will not have problem with our system. There will be no disruption. We have not even said we are going on strike. It's our members that will determine the next line of action.
Okay, so let's even look at one of your demands, that you want to renegotiate the terms of the agreement, of the 2009 agreement. Does it not amount to shifting the goalpost right in the middle of the game?
How?
Because that means you're asking for fresh, you're making fresh demands apart from what you demanded from the get-go, including, of course, the issue of university autonomy and the TSA and what have you.
No, for every negotiation, there will be a process of implementing the old ones. No new negotiation process will repudiate the old agreement. In fact, fulfilling the terms of the last agreement is always a condition for the negotiation. And that is why every agreement rolls into the other one. So, and that is what we have been doing.
Are we to take it, Professor Ogunyemi, that government has not met any part of its side of the bargain at all? Is that what we should take away from this discussion?
No, we are saying that there are aspects that have been partially implemented.
Okay.
But when you have an understanding with a union like ours, we need to track the items. We need to see how far we have gone, and we need to see what still require to be done.
All right. Now, Wale Babalakin to ASUU was saying, in fact, it was on one of the papers today, that it seemed obvious that government cannot totally fund the university system all alone. Is it high time that the universities also try to source and look for other alternative ways of funding? Because in all of these demands, everything seemed to boil down to funds and funds, or monies and monies and monies.
Well, we are not opposed, we are not averse to looking for other options to fund education. In fact, the joint committee that I said was set up was given that assignment to propose new ways. And there are ways that we have always proposed to government. The contribution of alumni, consultancy to universities, other funding sources. We have so many of them that we have always proposed. But is that the government will not honor those proposals, or even items that were agreed upon, or some people will deliberately undermine those terms. Okay. And I will tell you one instance.
Yes.
We went further to say, let us see what government is losing, and let us use the report that are available to us in terms of sources of generating funds to support education. And we went as far as setting up a 7-person committee to do that. They have a report before the government, which government can actually look into and implement.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Professor Biodun Ogunyemi, President of the Academic Staff Union of Nigerian Universities, for joining us this morning. Thank you so much for your time.